Decisions. Life is about decisions. And we've heard it again and again. Decisions, they say, determine destiny. Eunice?
I totally agree with you, Omo, considering that in marriage, each individual is coming from different backgrounds. So decision making is key.
You decide about first the person you want to marry.
Mm-hmm.
Where you do wedding decisions is
what direction to take when traveling together.
The children.
The children, yeah.
The school.
Finances.
Where to live.
Oh, a lot. I'm already like it's a lot.
And today we have our couple who will discuss decisions and the matters, how it affects marriages. Eunice, towards the honors.
The Idokokos are special to us. They're actually my own personal pastors. Yes, I had to add that.
I don't envy you.
And with us today are the Idokokos who will be speaking to us about decision making. And this episode is titled, Who Bells the Cat?
Welcome back to Covenant Marriages. Today we have an amazing couple, Eunice.
Yes, we are with the Idokokos. Mrs. Doris Idokoko is an etiquette consultant. Mr. Edward Idokoko is a sales and marketing expert. And they've been married for 15 years or more.
15 years.
15.
At the calculator.
15 years. And today they will be talking about who bells the cat. Decision making in marriages.
Welcome, sir, and welcome, ma. It's a pleasure to have you both here. You look very etiquette-y. Sorry, that's No, by that I mean prim and proper.
Thank you.
You know. So first question, whose decision is it to always look this good?
I think Alalaha has answered that question actually.
Yeah.
Let's do the ladies first.
We just decide.
Huh.
It's joint. So this morning, for example, I picked my outfit and I said, can you please get something complimentary?
So long and short, it's your decision.
It could be
So
his
to
at
speak.
times, but not anything. Maybe I should say whoever picks an outfit first. So if I wake up, for example, on Saturday and my outfit is ready, usually he will say till Sunday morning, say, the Spirit has not told me what to wear. So I can't afford to wait for the Spirit to tell him. I pick my outfit and I get my things ready on Saturday night. Then when he wakes up, he confirms, so what are you wearing? And he looks for something complimentary if he must wear something complimentary. But nothing serious.
Talking about spirit and decision making.
You are reading my mind, Eunice.
Is there a God side of decision making? Is it always a spiritual?
God said.
You
Daddy
know,
said.
is it really
Is it always like that?
spiritual?
Being that is a pastor.
Okay, let me approach it from this point of view. I think if we try to isolate and say it from that point that must there always be a God-said part, it kind of puts God in a different box and puts us in a different box. The truth is that we have God's life on the inside of us. And so just as you wake up normally and live life, that's how you wake up normally and you're with God in whatever you do. Okay. So I think God is vitally involved in everything. It just depends on your level of intimacy with Him. And that informs, you know, how much of His opinion or His consent you get to find out with whatever you're doing. So decisions really, you know, it's intertwined because the life of God comes from your inside, and you know that informs what you do on the outside.
So really and truly, the Spirit always says what wells on it.
No, so technically, let's look at it like this. Let's say in your wardrobe, let's say for example you have 10, 15 native attires, and you probably want to wear. You're not sure what to wear, you know. When a combination, you know, comes to mind, the truth about it is that where did it come from?
Mind.
God actually is involved in what you wear. So when that thought comes to you, where did you think it comes from? The truth about it is that most of us say it's inspiration. where does inspiration come from? Scripture says that there is a spirit in man. The breath of the Almighty giveth him understanding. So you're inspired by God. And you find out that you wear that combination. And everybody, even if it's not the first time you're wearing it, everybody seems to, you seem to be amiable to everybody. So give God the accolades. Right?
Oh, man of God. Sir, this happens to me every time. God, I thank you for my stylistic decisions.
So these simple things, like I love that we started talking about clothing, for instance, something as simple. As a mom, and a wife, having to make certain decisions, like simple decisions like what do we have to eat, and how do we plan simple things, outing for children or this week and all. How does agreeing with your husband so let me put it this way. How easy is it really? Because sometimes it could be overwhelming when you have to make certain decision, especially when you feel that maybe your spouse isn't as supportive, because he might just be thinking about many other things. How do you bring your spouse back into the picture to ensure that I need you at this point to help in agreeing with me on certain things, and then you run with it?
Okay, sorry to cut you, but I love this thing, but I think we should start from what do you classify simple decisions, major decisions? Then we'll now talk about the agreeing to, that's what I mean.
Simple decisions and major decisions in marriage.
Clothing is definitely a simple decision. Right?
Okay, for me, major decisions would be things like finance, planning investments. Where do we invest? How much do we invest? Where do we stay? How much do we spend on
Where
rent?
do we stay?
Yes, that's
Lekki,
accommodation.
Island versus mainland.
Wherever.
That's major decision.
For us, it's major.
We cannot live anywhere.
No.
We can't live anywhere, definitely.
Okay.
What school do the children attend? Those are major decisions. Yeah, let me just leave it at that. So I've talked about finance. I've talked about accommodation. And I also talked about schooling. Yes. Then maybe even choice of job.
Oh, choice of job.
Yes. It's also a major decision.
Simple decisions?
So, okay, simple decisions could be basically how the house is arranged.
How the house is arranged. Oh, my wife will hear it.
So because if you back up a bit on that question, the truth about it is that decisions actually stem from a couple of things: values, personality types,
Okay.
right, and your orientation towards life. So values, personality types, and your orientation towards life. And when you talk about your orientation towards life, you go into the person's background.
Yes,
all right? And that comes to play every single time, all right? And so if the way I grew up, so I grew up in a house with 7 kids, right? 7 kids, right? Mommy and daddy, so we're 9. But my mom is, she's the neatest human being I've met in my life.
Okay.
All right, okay? So my mom could smell dirt from outside the house, inside the house, okay? And she could sweep the house you could sweep the parlor 15 times.
Your mom?
Yes, when she touches dirt, sand, even if you just swept and she says she feels sand, there's sand. No arguments, you sweep again.
Sweep again.
Yes. So coming out of that kind of orientation, right, I either become the better for it or the worst for it.
Okay.
All right? So I go extreme, and sand is just, I'm in love with it because I didn't have the opportunity to step on it. Or I go a step further in it and I become like what they call today.
OCD.
I have become, fully OCD blown, and I can't tolerate somebody else. So it's, there are 2 extremes, but there is a midpoint that is healthy. So there's independence, there's overly dependence, and then there's healthy interdependence, where you're a midpoint, you've taken what you need to take, and that's helped you form, how you make decisions towards life. So arrangement of the house, and then of course, when we talk about personalities now, we now talk about, each person's specialty or competence. So within the house, right, and this is being as transparent as possible, I don't have OCD. Well, you can confirm from her. But I like everywhere being organized. Okay. That's a polite way to put it.
So polite.
Yes. So I can help with keeping the house organized.
Okay.
Yes. But cooking, 15 years down the line, we still have that conversation ongoing because she said I promised I was going to cook for her before we married.
15 years ago.
Yes. Jesus is still coming. so, so I'm not quite good with cooking because, interestingly, like I told you, connected to background, the house I grew up in, my dad had the orientation that men are not supposed to be in the kitchen. So, growing up as a child, if my dad met you in the kitchen, you're either going to take a knock or you're going to take a slap. So, as boys, yes, we always dodged out of the kitchen once daddy was at home. So we didn't have that opportunity to get exposed, even though mommy was of a different opinion that if I had only boys, wouldn't they support me with cooking?
Sure.
But he was pretty traditional in his thinking. So the boys didn't have that privilege. I have 2 brothers and 4 sisters. But my brothers actually, had that exposure because they went through boarding school. Okay. So they were able to, get. But I, of course, I didn't go through boarding school up until I went to the university, and I had very good friends and roommates. So I had the opportunity to cook, but not as someone who would probably pass for an expert. So I leave cooking and the department called the kitchen to her. Even though I'm asked consistently, what would you like to eat? And that's one of the most difficult questions to ask a man.
Oh.
So I won't put that under simple
Decision.
But basically, she has mentioned all the big decisions, and these are some of the simple things. So, for minute purchases, if you're good at something, okay, I leave you to make the decision on my behalf, because the truth about it is that why we are one is because we have come to trust each other, and our judgments on quite a number of issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, agreeing on decisions, major, minor, semi-minor, middle, intermediate, anyone. How do you guys do that?
Okay, so depending on what the decision is, so if, for example, it's something I have expertise on, and for some reason he's not buying on my thinking pattern, I take my time to pray. I talk to him at times, and I give him space to think about it. There are instances when, for time, maybe because we have limited time to make such decisions, I go ahead and make the decision because I know it's in the interest of the entire family. And of course, because I know maybe for some reasons he's not saying it, but I know we have to make such decision. I make that decision and I come back to him. Well, depending on how he's able to see the importance of the fact that somebody had to take a decision at that point in time, he may come back to me to say, why did you take this decision? And if my explanation is such that something had to be done, we had to make a decision like this, at times he lets it pass. But if it's something that has a negative impact, of course he scolds me. Why won't you wait? So I'll give an example. The children have a music teacher, and we've had times when the music teacher defaults, a particular one defaults, and he's always been of the opinion that we should get a replacement. Now, the person that handed over to this new music teacher was with the kids for over 7 years.
Wow.
So he relocated to the island and he couldn't combine. He handed us over to a new person. And the new person he handed us over to is also an expert, but very occupied. And I understand that getting a new teacher is not so easy. Of course, he doesn't have the professionalism of the old person, but I felt I could manage him. I know I needed to be patient with him, understand where he's coming from. He's a music director in his church, but he's good. So good that even whilst the old one was handling the teacher, he used to conduct mock for the children. So I felt, where am I going to? The expert is what we have. Let's still manage until we get a new one, So every time we had to make payments at the end of the month, and it comes to how many lessons has he Is he owing us and this and that? You know, I try to speak on his behalf. Okay, we'll get a makeup. But if I left that decision to my husband, he will fire the guy immediately. But because I know we've done 7 years, we can't say because of lack of management, we'll just let go of a goal that we've carried on for. Jeremy's 14, not even 7 years. I think we've done like 11 years. Yeah, because it started at 3.
Wow.
Who decided that I should start music at 3? Okay.
I did. We have 2 boys actually.
Okay.
And because we're trying to manage their energy, we had to look for something to occupy them. So the older one started at 3. Yes, it started.
Yeah, the older one started at 3. The younger one started at
3.
4.
Yes,
or 5.
yeah,
4 or
I'm
5.
not so sure, you know.
Wow.
So they started taking that. Of course, it's been a back and forth. And luckily, we work with this curriculum, ABRSM. So there's continuity. It's not something you just do and pull out. There's continuity. So that has helped us to stay in it, you know. So for a decision like that, I had to ensure that the guy was not sacked because I know there is no way we will get somebody. I am the one who interacts with the teachers. Of course, at the end of the month, he pushes out the funds.
That decision is made to
exactly
pay.
So I had to insist and use every method I could use to make sure we don't let go of the guy. He's made some changes this year because I had to call the older guy to say, what are we doing? We can't throw away this dream because somebody is not competent. And we're seeing adjustments. So for instances like this, when I know a situation can be managed, I would rather that I make that decision and he buys into it. And I think he's now comfortable. But initially, he didn't want to even have anything to do with the guy.
Wow.
Are there times where you've had to make, one party had to make a decision and it ended up being a wrong decision, and the other party is looking at him or her and saying, I told you so.
Oh gosh.
And really,
Oh gosh.
do you want to share an
Well,
experience?
okay, so let me add to the one more point because I said values, personalities, and what was it? Upbringing or background, and I think vision also too comes into that picture too.
Okay.
Right. So all those 4 things, and which I mean, the kids have done music for 11 years.
Hi.
If you left me, that would never show up.
They'll be playing
Why?
football.
I was playing football as a child every day in the compound. In fact, we're playing to prevent the grass from growing because we're in a big compound. So it was the assignment. If my dad sees grass, it means we're not playing football. So we had to play football. All right. I didn't grow up with a musical instrument, unfortunately. But, you know, her orientation is a little different. But does her orientation, is there a vision behind it? You submit to it. Do you understand? So it's because you see the bigger picture at the end of the day. All right. So if you talk about the wrong decisions, so I'm the logical, I'm the methodical type. I do a lot of internalization. I do a lot of thinking. I'm very perceptive. All right. I enjoy studying people. She, you know, also has her sides, but she is more of an adventurous person than myself. All right. If we were to pick up a new business venture or an investment, I will do extensive due diligence, right? Which probably, like they would say in out there, at times over analysis, which probably might lead to paralysis. But for her, if you sell a vision to her, she's a phenomenal starter. Hitting the ground is not a problem for her. But interestingly also too, you have to be able to stay
The course.
the course. That's me. So I want to weigh it properly. And then for the fact that we're believers, you want to be sure. Because as believers, I have this understanding that as believers, we do nothing that we regret. Which means when you set out, be sure. Or even if you make a mistake, be sure you have God on your side so that God converts that mistake into a miracle. All right? So we've done investments in the past. I will give a case in point, one of them that, you know, didn't go down too well. So some of these medical products that people came into the country some point, and then people started getting
That
distributorship.
involve
Yes,
multi-level.
multi-level marketing. And she told me about one of them that our family doctors had told her about, and how interesting it was and how much was being made from it. And I heard, and I said to her, okay, let's think about it. But in my thinking about it, I understood that the reason why it was profitable for our family doctors was because it was in the line of their profession. If your doctor told you today that this medicine is what will help you, you will take it. If your plumber tells you the same thing, you will tell him to get out of here.
True.
Do you understand my point?
Yeah.
So that thought came, and I felt based on that it wasn't in the line of her profession. She was a banker at the time. So I felt, how do you intend selling and convincing people? It's not like the drugs are not good, but how do you intend convincing people from your standpoint about these drugs? But apparently our family doctors had gotten under her skin, and she went ahead and then put some hundreds of thousands then. And I just noticed that one day she came back from work and she was bringing in cartons. What's happening? It's not somebody's birthday. What's going on? And inside each carton, we had different kinds of, drugs, tablets, fluids and things like that. And I said, what is this? She said, she paid for that thing and these are the products, so she's going to sell them. And then I said, you are going to sell them, right? She said, yes.
Yes.
You are going to sell them, right? She said, yes. I said, okay, no problem. Of course, my countenance fell. I wasn't happy that she had done this. But of course, she wasn't in tune with my thought. And that's another thing about decision making. Arguments actually, or disagreements actually, are 2 points of view coming from different directions. What we need to do to be better decision makers is to work on the power of synergy. So in the nonsense that your partner is saying, remove the non and keep the sense. In the nonsense that you're saying, remove the non and keep the sense. Bring both senses together and synthesize and so have something bigger. And so I watched her very closely. I will very, 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 like an inspector, check the cartons if any content was reducing. And I noticed the contents were not reducing. So she apparently had tried, spoken to a couple of friends and colleagues. But of course, like I said, it wasn't coming from someone who was, in quote, a medical expert. So it was difficult to buy. And then the drugs were not actually cheap at that time. So we ended up with cartons of drugs that we didn't sell. We couldn't get refunds. So it was a wrong decision. Now, of course, that should have led to a quarrel and everything. But of course, I just, of course, I was unhappy, but I kept my cool.
Sir, sorry, you
Yes.
did not tell her I told you so.
No.
His
Wait now.
countenance
We're
told
not.
me.
We're not. So down the line, when the drugs had to now be distributed for free,
Ew.
we were forced to drink some more, the multivitamins. We had to now start taking those ones. But at the end of the day, it became clear and apparent that, this was a wrong decision, right? Did she admit on the spot? No, not really. Down the line, she alluded to it that yes, that was actually a wrong decision. But of course, for the sake of maturity in marriage, when you win, so to speak, because it's not a competition, you don't announce it. The point has been made and you let it pass. The effect will be felt in the subsequent decision because your opinion will be sought. That's how you know that decision has helped.
Wow.
So you said wow together.
When you win, you don't
You don't
announce.
announce it.
So let's go for our first break. And on Covenant Marriages, we're still talking about belling the cat, decision making in marriages.
Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms, Covenant Marriages, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and to do subscribe to this channel, The Covenant Nation on YouTube, and then look for us on the playlist. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. This is still Covenant Marriages, and we're talking to the Idokokos. We're speaking about a topic: who bails the cat? Decision making in marriages. Decision making is a big deal in marriages, and I'm so glad that we have our guests today. Remember to follow us on all our handles at Covenant Marriages on Instagram and Facebook, and also like, share, and subscribe to the Covenant Nation channel on YouTube. Omo.
Yes, just thinking of the top of my head, as you talked about, you mentioned it just briefly about, it's a very hard question to ask a man, what do you want to eat? So I'm interested, when you ask that question, how do you get to a conclusion? How do you decide on a conclusion so that we don't give him or give us, because I think I fall into the same category. So how do you handle that to get to a logical conclusion?
Okay, so what I do basically, I always have a timetable. I have a timetable. I have a meal timetable. I go on YouTube. I check breakfast option, lunch option, dinner option, and I actually have it printed. I have it on my board in the kitchen.
You have
But
a
there are
board
days,
in your kitchen?
yes, I have it on my board in the kitchen.
Everybody's supposed to follow this board.
So it's for it's more
It's like a
like,
guide or
it's an
something.
inspiration
It's a
for
guide.
me. So it gives me options. So for example, maybe on Monday, I can have 3 different options of breakfast. So depending on what's available in the house. But despite the fact that I have a meal timetable, there are times when I'm just lazy and I don't feel like. So times like that, those are the times when I really wish him to tell me specific. Because already I have an existing timetable. But usually when I ask him, what do you want? It's because I'm short of ideas. And when it comes back to me with anything, I'm like, anything is nothing. You know, when he will say, what's easiest for you? I say, water, let's sleep. Let's take a cup of tea and go to bed. That's the easiest, you know. I'm not in the mood to cook. But you know,
in my magnanimity, I say, what's the easiest
to
thing
be
for her?
sincere, he is actually very, what's the right?
Considerate.
Very considerate. He's an extremely, if you have it way, I would have a chef and I wouldn't have to go into the kitchen.
Wow.
You know, but then
I wish I had a shaker.
so when it comes up with, when it looks like I can't get him to give me a specific answer, he will tell me, okay, what are the things on what are the available things, you know? If it's not something that is frozen and I can easily put into the microwave, I give him options and we come to a conclusion. There are times when we even do cereal just because we can't conclude on what to eat.
Sorry, cereal is...
Cereal could be cornflakes.
I don't know, as you said this, I remember one.
Pap helps me, as in I always have it. My mom makes pap for him. He takes pap himself and the last boy. I don't do pap, but pap is constantly in my fridge.
Oh.
Wow.
So it helps me out when there are no options, but he won't take pap at night. He'll wake up in the middle of the night. So pap is usually what he'll probably take with moi moi or with akara, but you know, those are easy meals that I have. And
Okay, we've talked about simple decision. What's the hardest decision you've had to make together as a couple? Or together, or personally, the hardest decision you've had to make together since you got married?
I wouldn't call it hardest. I would say that there have been hard decisions we've made. Because if you say hardest, it means that you're comparing them between each other.
Okay,
So-
please
so-
share two.
But let me
Share one,
okay.
share
I'll
one.
tell you one. I think one very interesting one that we tell couples that we counsel today every single time is before we got married, I was putting up with my eldest sister, and we were looking for an accommodation, right? And she grew up in Lagos on the Ijesha side of Lagos. I grew up, you know, for a major part of my life in Benin, and then came into Lagos when it was time for the university. We both schooled at UI.
Oh.
Okay, so I stayed on the Ojodu axis of Lagos, right?
Sorry, sir. Ogun State.
No. No. It's a thing of the mind. So I stayed on the Ojudu side, so Ojudu Keja side, and I just had this perception about that side being too congested. So when it came to deciding on where to stay, now bear in mind, before we got married, I was working at the agency, advertising agency, and my office was at Ikeja. And she, of course, I think you hadn't started work then, but coming from Ijesha side, it didn't look like her parents wanted us to stay on that side. But we were of the opinion that, we're starting life together, so let's go far
To the wilderness.
and let's build our lives together, right? And so you know how it is with young folks, and they want to be independent and to prove themselves. So that was really, and then of course coupled with the fact that my office was at Ikeja, so it didn't make any sense to go anywhere far away. But the interesting thing was that we looked for a house for it was over a year now. And we didn't get a house.
In Ojudu.
No. We didn't even get a house. We saw so many things like houses, but we didn't get a house. So to the extent where you come to an apartment to check, and then the realtor says he doesn't have the key, but you can look through the window. So you see, this house is a 10 by 12, and that's the house they want you to take. So we had all those kind of experiences in Lagos, but that's a story for another day. But interestingly, on the 31st of that year, 2006, yes, at TBS, New Year Eve service, while we were just worshiping, I just heard within me, say something about the house. And then I heard something else again, that what would you say today now that would make anything happen? This year has finished now. So it was like an argument was going on inside me, and I knew, God was trying to say something to me. And then I heard again, what would you lose if you say something? She was with me. So I just said, Lord, we've gotten a house. I don't know how you've done it. We've gotten a house. So because she was attending covenant with me, for the New Year service, when we finished around 1:30 thereabout, we went to my sister's place where I was staying, okay? And of course, she stayed in the guest room. I went to sleep. And then that morning, we were praying. Of course, it was the first of the year, 2007. As we were praying, my elder sister's husband just came into the room to say Happy New Year to us. And, after we exchanged pleasantries, next thing he said was that, one of my colleagues' younger sister is relocating to South Africa to meet her husband.
Wow.
Are you guys interested in their place? We looked at ourselves. Yes. And the place was at Ogba. So interestingly, we planned, we went there, they took us there. It was a 3-bedroom apartment, 2 toilets and 1 room and suite, 2 toilets and 2, that's 1 room and suite, and the other 2 rooms sharing 1 toilet and bathroom in Ogba there. And we went there, but the kind of atmosphere in the place was a little stiff because apparently her mom, was Muslim, and prayers and all kind of things were going on there. So when we went there, she wasn't quite comfortable with the place because they hadn't moved out. When I got there, I just sensed this was the place. So when we left, I said, "What do you think?" I said, "That's the place."
Okay.
She said to me, which is something that I say in terms of decision making, you have to be able to trust to an extent, the vision, the values, the upbringing and the personality. And she said, if I say that is a place, that's fine. That's a place. And then they moved out. Now, that place was a miracle because we got that place. Bear in mind, we had been looking for a place for over a year. The least we had seen was probably like maybe 400 or more thousand for rent. But we got that place fully furnished with chair, settee, fridge, beds in the room, rug, everything, plus 1 year rent for 400,000.
Whoa.
Do you understand? So we didn't have a TV, and then they gave us a TV at that wedding. So
Wow.
the house was set.
Set.
All right. Now, when we came back into the house, because we came to pray and they had moved out and then we set the place up, the atmosphere had changed. And when we came back home, we only moved into the house after the wedding. That's when she said it was really true that this was where God wanted us to be. Now, if she didn't trust my judgment, we probably would have been arguing and probably would have looked for somewhere else.
True.
Do you get? My thinking is that if God's involved in your marriage, to an extent, there is a measure of God on the inside of both of you. You should trust each other's judgments. Even if it turns sour, you switch to plan B, that this sour situation can be reworked with God helping us to bring out value. But you have to trust each other's decisions. At times, the arguments that come up, it's not because the decisions are actually wrong or proven wrong, but largely at times because we don't trust the judgment. And so decisions get difficult.
Great. Madam,
Okay,
hard decision.
Another hard decision that I would say we made was, honey, give me a clue.
Leaving your job.
Yeah, that was a hard one. Leaving my job. I'd worked as a banker for 11 years plus, and at some point, okay, so we started out not engaging any form of house help.
We've never had
We
a house
didn't
help.
want any external influence.
Never.
Never.
Whose decision?
It was
Our
joint.
decision.
So you support each other?
Yes,
considering-
yes. We actually started out like that. It was okay. Of course, over the
Strenuous,
years,
but-
we had times when our grannies came around, his mom, my mom, a cousin at some point, but we never had anybody external. So I'd done 11 years. I think my first was about 7
Yeah.
or 6, yeah. So one of the things we agreed was, okay, since we were not going to engage in house help, we had to enroll them in an after school. And we got a school that was close to my
Close to the
office.
house. Yeah. The office, yeah.
We were very deliberate about that. We got a school that would not require pressure that we are running out of time. We are crossing with the child. So we also looked for accommodation on the side of the road that are aligned with their school, so that such that when I'm driving and parking the car, the kids are going into school, I will be the one doing the crossing. So it was really seamless. And banking for that 11 years was extremely comfortable for me, you know. There wasn't pressure to get out of the bank as such, but there was pressure with the children. They were already growing older. The first were looking at common entrance, and of course, by the time I pick them up at 6. Between the house and school was less than 15 minutes because we were always driving against traffic. When I get home, I still have to sit down, do assignments, still read storybooks to them. So it became obvious that the older one needed more attention. And even though they were doing after school, they weren't getting the best from the teachers, because the same teachers that would have taught them from morning till afternoon are the same people that would do the after school. So we just felt, okay, what do we do? You know, of course, I'd always known that I was not going to do banking for so long. So it became apparent that we had to make a decision with care for the children. So, of course, we had discussed back and forth. I'd gone for my etiquette training, I think 2 years before then, you know, but we're not sure about when to pull out. But when when the older one became 7, and we're beginning to notice there were certain things that we felt, oh, this is as a result of not spending enough time. We now began to talk more about it, that what do we do? You know, what do we do? So one of the things we did was we weighed our investments. What do we have? If you have to work for now, can what you're generating and the income from our investment, can it sustain us for this period of time? What can we cut down on, you know? So initially, I'd wanted to rush out because I felt, oh, the kids needed me, they needed me. We said I should hold on, you know. I went for several entrepreneurship training just to prepare myself. Then I think towards the year I actually pulled out of the bank, it became obvious to him that, okay, I guess he became comfortable with that decision. And he said, okay, go ahead. After it, I think it was after WAFBEC. Yeah,
Yeah, it was like February, yeah.
So eventually we made that decision, and it was a difficult one because I'd worked all my years. Before marriage, I got a job before marriage, you know, and it was a form of engagement for me. Now, transiting into the business was not what I thought it was going to be. And luckily, God actually confirmed that it was on my side, because my very first job was with one of the biggest schools in Lagos.
Wow.
You know, so it was more like, I'm in this thing, I'm in with you,
With
you
you.
know. So I had that as a confirmation. But of course, I didn't see the big picture, you know, of the life of an entrepreneur. So, of course, by the time I'd done 1 year and I did my first business and I was looking for business, I'm like, where's the business coming from? I knock on doors, interpreting your ideas to people, or explaining your ideas or trying to convince people. You know, at some point I began to feel jittery that did I make the right decision? Did I make the right decision? But every time I looked at my kids, I saw improvements. Spiritually, they were growing. So one of the things we started doing as young as, I think 3, I always wrote confessions. So before they began to read, I used to read their confessions to them and they would recite it. When they grew older, I began to give them short confessions that they could recite, you know. But when I came back home and I was now staying with them, we did more of that. We did more of reading together. We did more of their book work together. We did more time, we spent more time. So I saw improvements in them that gave me a form of encouragement that, okay, yes, you're not getting your regular 24 paycheck, but these are the things that are happening. Now, the older one is a teenager, and I've seen lots of stunts, and I'm like, if I was doing 9 to 6, how do I discover? How would I know this? You know, it's situation where the child is switching singlets, and I'm like, why are you covering your neckline? And it says, my boom. But of course, I know it's peer pressure. For every little switch, because I was available, I could pick, I could query, and I'm like, if I was working in the bank, I won't see these things. These values would have been entrenched in the child.
Just to double click a bit on some of the things she said, why it was also a difficult decision was because of where we were at in terms of earning. Okay, so I mean, like it was just a few years into the marriage, and on the one hand, yes, banking was good because of how God had helped us develop the whole system, created a system that worked for us. But of course, they were beginning to apply pressure. She moved from operations into marketing, and of course, she had to begin to look for deposits and accounts and things like that. And for me, one of the defining moments was the fact that I looked at her critically one day, and I noticed she had begun to develop more gray hairs than mine. And so I said to myself, I mean, whatever becomes of her is going to affect me. So I think, because she had actually said she wanted to pull out, but I said, let's hold on a bit, let's see how we can, when we stabilize, we can, but it just dawned on me that there will be no perfect time for it. So let's agree and then make the adjustments and move on. And of course, we did that, and then, but it borders on our values, the kind of children we want to raise. And so even if she stepped out a couple of years back, right, it didn't change how the finances were being expended. It didn't change how the finances were being allocated. It didn't change who was getting what or what was being used for what. Because these decisions had become our values to support the system that we had created. So, because the value that you entrench in the child determines tomorrow. I mean, the Yorubas say that the child that you do not train, if you build a house or something, I don't know how to say it, but will now sell the house at the end of the day or some kind of thing like that. But for us, raising godly children is a non-negotiable. And that takes time. I'm very appreciative of the fact that she could make that sacrifice, because up until a few years ago, my kind of work, I came in pretty late. So I worked on the island, and bear in mind we were staying on the mainland. And so I had to do the traffic back and forth. And it wasn't time when you could work virtually. So I would leave early in the morning too and come back late at night, and at times as late as 10, regularly. Of what use would I be to the kids during the week? So that decision to be there was what helped me in my own pursuit to give stability, all right? So it's like one person helping balance out.
Thank you so much, sir, for that response. So what are some practical steps, maybe like short practical steps in decision-making processes that couples can, apply when they have to make either simple or hard decisions?
Do you want me to go first?
For any successful decision to be made, it has to stem from your values. So the first thing is, what are your values? So it's based on your values, actually, that you make your decisions.
Okay.
So the first thing is it in line with your values? Does it align with what you believe as a couple? Does it favor the family? Or is it just a personal, is it what is going to favor just one person? You know? So I think basically, first of all, your values must be priority to make any decision. If it aligns with your values, then it won't be a problem at any point in time, whatever it is that you agree with.
I would add to that and say that every couple should have a vision of what kind of marriage they want to set up, because every system is different. Once that is clear, you know that every activity, every initiative is geared towards achieving that objective as a couple. So I said your values, your vision, your values, my wife already talked about that. Then agreement. We have to agree. Even scripture tells us in Amos 3:3, can two walk together except they agree? And there's so many versions to that scripture. If you read one of the versions, it says, can a couple walk together if they have not met? Yeah, if you go check it out. You know, so it's important that you agree. You agree, and then lastly, you hold each other accountable. Because at times down the line, you know, if it gets difficult with the decision we have taken, do we stick to it? And I'll give you a quick example to this. In our finances, the way we started out was to have, because God gave us an understanding of how to break it down. So we weren't keeping money that we needed in the bank. We kept it in the house in envelopes beside the bed.
Wow.
Yes.
Your savings.
No, not savings.
Okay.
Every other money is required.
Okay.
Upkeep, feeding, airtime, NEPA bills, and everything. They were in different envelopes, right? And they were labeled. Now, if one envelope was empty, it was empty. You don't take from another envelope to meet the need of your other envelope. So holding each other accountable. If not, I could come back home and pick money. There's money there, but I just pick it up and go and do what I need to do. But that's not accountability. And if we've decided, we have decided.
True.
If we need to change it down the line, then we need to reconvene and say, okay, this is not working. How do we change it? So vision, values, agreement, and accountability is what I'm saying.
Final question. Have you ever had to make a faith decision? A decision that you didn't see the end? I don't say faith decision, for want of a better word. Let me explain. Remove the faith.
Okay.
Have you ever had to make a decision where you didn't see the outcome, you didn't see the end of the decision at the beginning, and you made the decision and then things turned in the middle, or I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say, or a decision that you didn't have all the answers, all the information at the beginning, but you just went into it, boom. And how did that turn?
Well, this you see right here is faith, actually, because the truth about it is that we did not know how we're going to turn out. I mean, when you get up and say you're going to marry a lady, what do you know she's going to be like in 15 years?
True.
It's faith. So even if midway, 6-7 years into the marriage, anything comes up, what do? Do you tell yourself, I decided wrongly? I'm taking a hike? No, you don't. You stick with it. It's faith, you know? And that's predicated on what you heard before you set out.
So you must hear something.
So you stick with it. You stick with it.
Wow.
This is it, and this is how it will be. Permit me to use how the Catholics say it, as it was in the beginning.
So and thou shalt be
War without
end.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for having
It's
us.
been truly enlightening. I mean, I've had so many corrections, I dare say, corrections from just listening to you. We're grateful that you're here.
Yes, we are, and we would like to also thank you for being a part of today's episode. It's our tradition on covenant marriages not to leave our guests empty-handed. So we have something for you.
A token?
It's here.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Wow.
God.
Do us
I
the
love
honor,
it.
Somo.
You love it. I love the back, too.
Okay, I'll not keep you in suspense anymore.
This is beautiful.
I like that the hand is on the, you know.
I've been
our-
Like,
You
I
belong
He's
trust
showing
you.
ownership.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
so
Thank you
much.
so much, sir.
So we like to bless you with this. Please keep it in a conspicuous place.
Definitely.
You bet. You bet. It will be
Definitely.
conspicuously placed. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
And on that note,
Jibola,
ladies,
thank you.
and on that note, we'd like to say thank you to our viewers for staying this long. You can rewatch it. You can rewatch this episode, especially if you're like me, that you got corrected again and again. Thank you for being there.
And don't forget to follow us on all our handles on Instagram and Facebook at Covenant Marriages Show.
This, the bed is back. Twitter. You can follow on Twitter as well. Okay.
Yeah,
for
till we
now.
meet again. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.